Hello again, class. I'm back without a beanie. It's not as cold anymore. So let's pick up with our readings of the fallacies from Everything's an Argument. We'll pick up where we left off on page 79. As you can say, I've brought up websites of each of them, so we have practical examples in addition to the book to look at. Stacking the deck occurs when you omit evidence that could be counter. You're again the opposite of Rogerian argument, Rogerian strategy. It's a one-sided assessment. I think the book's example of Supersize Me, if you haven't seen the movie, the man who made it eats nothing but McDonald's for a month and develops all these like liver problems and things like that. But he doesn't show the possible other side of it. What if you ate nothing but McDonald's for a month, but you exercised and you took vitamins and things like that? He doesn't exercise. He doesn't do any vitamins. So again, it's when you just show one side of the story, the one that's in your favor. On to our next one, a hasty generalization. And this is essentially what stereotyping is. When a conclusion is reached that is not logically justified by sufficient or unbiased evidence. When you make a claim about everything based on a small sample, just because one elderly person may happen to be a bad driver, you don't say all old people are bad drivers. Stereotyping, right, is a perfect example of a hasty generalization, right? Not logically justified by sufficient or unbiased evidence. Here we go. We have this nice example. It was a rainy day in Harvard Square, so the foot traffic through the atrium from Mass Ave to Mount Auburn Street was heavier than it might have been if the sun were out. A lot of people were carrying umbrellas, which most of them furled inside. I had always thought that Cambridge, in the vicinity of Harvard, might have had the most umbrellas per capita in any place of the world. People used them when it snowed. In my childhood, in Laramie, Wyoming, we used to think people who carried umbrellas were sissies. It was almost certainly a hasty generalization, but I had never encountered a hard argument against it, right? It's also a personal attack, by the way, right? So that being said, the reason I share this example is Robert P. Parker is one of my favorite authors. And when I typed in hasty generalization and this example popped up, not only is it a hasty generalization, but calling someone who uses an umbrella attacking their character rather than the argument itself, why are you using the umbrella, logically, is a personal attack. So we see both fallacies in play here. On to the next one, false cause. When the link between the premise and the conclusions depend on some imagined causal connection that probably does not exist. False cause. You assume that because something came before something, it caused it. And you have to have a logical relationship between, right, your conclusion and the premises, the facts, to support that conclusion. If time is your only reasoning, oh well, this happened before it, therefore it caused it, right? That's false cause. Superstitions are a perfect example of false cause. Next up, begging the question. Ooh. This is an interesting one. It occurs when an argument's premise, right, the fact, assumes the truth of the conclusion instead of supporting it. So you basically repeat as your conclusion your reason, right? So your conclusion is your reason why you're concluding. In other words, you assume without proof of the position or a significant part of the position that is in question. Begging the question is also called arguing in a circle. They're probably the two most popular examples of begging the question. When parents tell children to do something and the child says, why? And they say, because I said so, right? Rather than give them a reason to support the conclusion that they should do something, they just say the reason is because I said so. You should go to your room. Why? Because I said so. Okay, let's break down the argument. You should go to your room because I said you should go to your room. Usually when people beg the question, they either don't have a logical reason or they don't want to share it with you. You should go to your room. Why? because you're annoying me and I don't want to look at you or hear you anymore, right? Parents don't want to say that to the kids, but this, sometimes the kids just get on your nerves. Um, so because I said so is a good example of begging the question. And the other one, and they made a Seinfeld episode out of this. I don't know if you're familiar with the show. That whole expression when you break up with someone or someone breaks up with you and you say why, and they say, it's not you, it's me. Begging the question is also one of those duh moments, right? Like duh, no kidding, right? Um, I'm breaking up with you. Why are you breaking up with me? Oh no, it's not you, it's me, right? And then the person you're breaking up with is like, yeah, I know, it is you. You're breaking up with me right now. I'm asking you why you're breaking up with me. They either don't have a reason or they don't want to tell them the reason. I'm breaking up with you because I don't like you anymore, because you smell, because your friends aren't cool enough for me. I don't know, whatever the reason is. So a lot of times when people want to avoid giving the proof, they'll beg the question. And it leaves you wondering, okay, so what is the reason why you're coming to this conclusion? I'm coming to this conclusion because I'm coming to this conclusion, as opposed to I'm coming to this conclusion because of this reason. Right? Equivocation. This is essentially, ooh, it looks like I forgot to pull that one up. Sorry, I'll just type it in. Equivocation is a half truth, right? It's kind of essentially like a lie disguised as a truth. Uh-oh, sorry. Well, real-time video here. Equivocation. When people say white lies, oh, it's not really a lie, it's a white lie. No, it's still a lie, right? It's just a lie in which you feel as though you know what's better for the person than what they know for themselves. So you decide that you're going to lie to them. Kind of messed up. Use of ambiguous language to conceal the truth or to avoid committing oneself. Prevarication. In logic, equivocation is an informal fallacy resulting from the use of a particular word or expression in multiple senses within an argument. It is a type of ambiguity that stems from a phrase having two or more distinct meanings, not from the grammar or structure of the sentence. Remember the storm video? It's a human experiment of one. Remember, if there's going to be an experiment, you need to have a placebo group, a controlled group. There needs to be clearly laid out criteria of evaluation. Now, they said they're experimenting on their child. Again, more of a scientific term. Would you say that someone should experiment on their child? No. Would you do a human experiment of one on a child? No. Now, are the parents experimenting, right, with a new parenting strategy by not telling their child the child's biological gender? Yeah. They're experimenting with a strategy, meaning they're trying it out, not noun and experiment. See what I mean? But I wasn't lying. It was just a white lie, or I just didn't tell you the truth. Here's a perfect example that I'll share with you that unfortunately comes from my own personal experience. So I always tell you to write anecdotes. Here's an anecdote of my own. Many years ago, maybe this is why we're divorced. My first wife and I got a speeding ticket and I didn't tell her. And at the end of the month, this is back with checking accounts, you get the summary of your monthly account. She said, what was this this check to the DMV for, $400 something? I said, oh, that was for my 82-mile-an-hour speeding ticket. And she was like, when the hell did you get an 82-mile-an-hour speeding ticket? I said, oh yeah, last month. She said, why didn't you tell me? I said, you never asked. Now, again, I share this story with you, and in hindsight, I regret that I was speeding that day. That was very illogical of me, and I regret that I was not forthright. And she said, well, when you came home and you said to me, and I said to you, how was your day? You didn't think to tell me you got a speeding ticket? And I said, well, you didn't say, how was your day? Did you get a speeding ticket? I said, you never asked. I equivocated the word ask, because when someone says, how was your day? They want the good, the bad, and the ugly. They don't necessarily want you to leave out certain things that you deem less or more important for that matter. On to the next one, a non sequitur. This one is a Latin expression. It just means a conclusion or statement that does not logically follow, from the previous argument or statement. It pretty much covers all fallacies, right? But so it's an argument whose claims, reasons, or warrants don't connect logically. So it kind of relates to Toulmin's strategy in that you have to have a claim, a reason, and a warrant. Straw man, next one. We touched on this when we were dealing with the storm segment from Dr. Drew. They consistently create these fake arguments so they can knock them down and claim a victory. Just like a scarecrow is a fake person in the garden, which meant to scare away insects and animals from eating your fruits and vegetables. And again, when people do this, they usually don't have a logical counter argument. So in order to create that kind of diversion, they create this argument that is distorted or exaggerated, right? And then attack the distortion or exaggeration as if it was the real claim to claim a victory. It's similar in some ways to a red herring, which this comes from the dried smoked fish. It's something, especially a clue that is intended to be misleading or distracting. And in the book, they do a nice job of explaining that this fallacy gets its name from the old British hunting practice of dragging a dried herring across the path of a fox in order to throw the hounds off the trail. A red herring fallacy does just that. It changes the subject abruptly or introduces an irrelevant claim or fact to throw readers or listeners off the trail. One of the easiest examples to remember of this is when somebody says something and someone replies, but what about, and it's something completely irrelevant to distract attention, right, from the topic. So next up, right, and here's red herring fallacy that distracts from the original topic. Some may refer to this as a smoke screen. Red herrings are frequently used in mystery, thriller, and dramatic novels, and also political speech. Politics, it comes back to it. Last but certainly not least is our faulty analogy, right? When you assume because two things are alike in one or more respects, they are necessarily alike in some other respect, right? An analogy is a comparison between two things to better understand, right? And so in this situation, you distort the analogy and it is false. The book describes it as inaccurate or inconsequential comparisons between objects or concepts, right? So that being said, hopefully you're feeling confident about the second reading on the logical fallacies, and please try to recognize fallacious appeals when analyzing arguments. And I feel as though stereotyping and discrimination are perfect examples of errors in reasoning. So feel free to reference hasty generalizations and double standards. Now, the book doesn't have double standard, forgive me, and since I bring that up with discrimination, right? So stereotyping is a form of hasty generalization, and discrimination is an example of a double standard, a rule or principle which is unfairly, right, illogically applied in different ways to different people or groups. So again, it's a non sequitur. It's an error in reasoning, a logical fallacy, right? So double standard, right? And discrimination and hasty generalization and stereotyping all play a role in this essay. Thanks for listening and watching. Let me know if you have any questions, phone call, text, message, FaceTime, voice memo, or stop by my Zoom office hour tomorrow.